In this video, we're going to walk through the definitions of actually 6 trigonometric ratios. So to begin, we're going to consider the right triangle that we can see on the upper right side of our page. And when we're talking about trig ratios, we're going to define the side lengths relative to one of the acute angles. So for this particular illustration, we're going to use theta as this angle in the bottom left of our triangle. And then we need to define the lengths of the sides relative to theta. So we're going to start with the side opposite the right angle. So if we go across the triangle from the right angle, we're going to define that side as the hypotenuse. Then we're going to go back to our angle and we're going to go across the triangle to the opposite side, across from the acute angle that we've chosen, and we're going to label that as the opposite side. And the remaining side is this side right here. That side is called the adjacent side. So when we're defining the trig ratios, they are ratios of lengths of sides in a right triangle relative to a given acute angle. So let's go ahead and define the 6 trig ratios. Okay, so for a given acute angle theta in a right triangle, we define sine of theta, and we write it as sin theta is the ratio of the length of the opposite side over the length of the hypotenuse. Cosine theta is defined as the ratio of the length of the adjacent side over the length of the hypotenuse. And tangent of theta, which is written as tan theta, as abbreviated, is the ratio of the length of the opposite side over the length of the adjacent. So when we say opposite, that really means length of the opposite side. And when we say hypotenuse, that means length of hypotenuse. Okay, so we're talking about ratios of lengths of sides of right triangles. Okay, the mnemonic that I think you probably learned before is SOHCAHTOA. Sometimes it's written like this. To help you remember. And what that means is sine is the ratio of the opposite side to the hypotenuse. Cosine is the ratio of the adjacent side length to the length of the hypotenuse. Tangent is the length of the opposite side divided by the length of the adjacent side. So that will help you remember which side length goes with which ratio. And you probably haven't seen these before, but there are reciprocal ratios, and they're reciprocals of sine, cosine, and tangent. So the first one that we're going to do is cosecant. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, which means if sine is the ratio of the opposite side to the hypotenuse, then cosecant is the ratio of the length of the hypotenuse over the length of the opposite side. The next definition is secant. So secant theta is the reciprocal of cosine. So secant theta is the length of the hypotenuse over the length of the adjacent side. And cotangent theta is defined as the reciprocal of tangent, and it is the length of the adjacent side over the length of the opposite side. And then you will need to memorize or remember how these ratios relate to each other.